Sure, let's do it.
We can wait if you want to wait, but we're ready to go.
Yeah, I think we should go. Go ahead and start.
Okay. All right. So my name is Rose. I think most of you know me from, years of being here and me being baptized here and everything. I am a member of the California Emergency Response Corps, which is an AmeriCorps program. We're a pretty new program. And then these are my colleagues. I'll let them introduce themselves.
My name is Alex. I'm also a member of the California Emergency Response Corps.
And I am Leilani. I'm also a member of the California Emergency Response Corps. Hello.
So we're going to start making our way through this presentation, but if anyone has any questions at any time, just raise your hand, or since I'm 10 feet away from you, you can just yell your question out, and we can take questions as we go. That's us. Okay, so if you look at the paperwork that we gave you, we break everything that we're going to talk about basically into 5 basic steps, and we'll elaborate on those as we go, but the 5 basic steps are get alerts, make a plan, I don't know if I'm going in order, pack a go bag, make a stay kit, and help others if you're able to. So, does everyone here have a smartphone? Okay, so we're going to take a few minutes right now to pull up your internet browser and go to calalerts.org to get signed up for alerts, because I think you can't evacuate or do any of these things if you don't know that there's something happening in your area, and these let you know if the county that you're living in or that you're staying in or working in or whatever is currently under an evacuation order. So if you want to get your phones out and go to this website, we can get everyone signed up. And if you prefer a QR code, I think, do we have the QR codes out on the things or here? Okay, so you can also come up and scan this and it'll take you to that website too. But otherwise, the website, calalerts.org, go ahead and pull that up on your browser, and then that way we can answer any questions if you run into any issues.
What is a browser?
A browser is like a website.
It's a menu.
Well, a browser is a format for a website. So there's different kinds of browsers. This is the Google. If you just touch Safari on your phone, which is a
I've been
browser.
told a lot of things. Whenever a browser,
You're not a browser.
it's a good thing or a bad thing.
I have Safari as well. So Google is just
Oh, that's a good point. So in addition to those alerts, for people who are less comfortable using smartphones or don't have access to one, 211 is a really great resource. So if you call 211, you can also find out where you can get the COVID vaccine for free. So 211 has a ton of different resources, like where shelters are being set up. So if you do have to evacuate, you know what shelter you can go to. They can give you information about what shelters pets are allowed at, or if there's a separate shelter for pets, things like that. So in the event of a disaster, calling 211 is a good idea, especially if you're not super tech savvy, and they can give you all of that information. And then also just being aware and listening to the news, listening to the radio. There are other options if you're not super comfortable with the smartphone, but just I don't know, like CAL FIRE has a Twitter handle if you do like social media. I think it's like cal_fire, and they do updates there when there's a disaster going on.
Some folks might not know what a Twitter handle is.
Okay, so if you don't know what that is, then you don't have to worry about it. But for some people, Twitter, like especially when we're talking to people experiencing homelessness, if they don't have an email account or something like that, or not one that they check regularly, or they have they don't pay their cell phone bill all the time, they can still check Twitter on other people's phones. So that tends to be more useful for other communities. But just if you are a Twitter user, they do have that. But you can also check the CAL FIRE website too, just by Googling CAL FIRE.
But the 211 is different from 911. It's not an emergency line. It's more like
Correct.
right?
Yeah, so yeah, if there's like your house is on fire and you call 911, they're not going to give you a lot of information. So after you evacuate, you would call 211. It's not an emergency number. It's free. You can just call them and say, hey, I've been evacuated and I don't know what to do, and they can direct you.
For like resources and housing support.
Exactly. Yeah, just resources and shelter locations, or if you have mobility issues and can't, for whatever reason, use the shelter that they've directed you to, they can find more resources that are accessible to you.
So once we're on calalerts.org, what do we do?
So once you're on calalerts.org, you can scroll up to the 3 lines in the top corner, and all the way down at the bottom of that drop-down menu, there's a sign up, and then it's a little bit longer of a process than it probably should be, but it'll ask you for some personal information and create an account for you, and then you'll just automatically get alerts. I think there's also an app if you like apps and want to download the app, but I don't think you need to.
The Everbridge Global Safety app.
Yeah.
Actually download the app. So it runs all through the county, is what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah, it's county specific. And like I was telling them, I think it does give you the option to sign up for multiple counties. So if you live in this county but you work in Sacramento County or something like that, and you want to be informed on both of those, I think it does give you that option, which is a good idea, because if you're away and you want people in your family to know what's going on in the county that you're working in too, it's a good idea for everyone to get signed up for those.
Is Everbridge the app for the whole state of California?
I know Yolo County uses it for dispatching and all of those sort of things, but is it California-wide? Yeah, so Everbridge is used for the entire state of California.
And you'll also only receive messages or alerts if there is an emergency within your immediate area. So if, let's say there's another fire up in Siskiyou County, the state isn't going to bother you with that type of alert.
Is there any information about air quality? Does that come out on this?
I don't believe so. I think that that is specifically evacuation orders, things that you'd have to take immediate action for. But I do know that I believe it's CAL FIRE has a website. So if you go to the CAL FIRE website,
This is the weather app, right, for air quality, which I've been told is not always accurate, like based on airports.
Right.
But we've been using Purple Air, which is based, that apparently there's like devices you can get on, we can get on our church property about air quality,
Mhm.
issue, wildfire.
yeah, it's a good idea, especially with COVID and respiratory issues happening. It's a good idea to stay informed about air quality. But well, I think you could probably, would 211 give people that information?
I've been called to one outside of COVID news.
I think 211 would probably give you that information too, but the Cal Alerts is going to specifically be alerts that you have to take immediate action for, but Cal Fire and 211 have a bunch of other resources.
So like I said before, my name's Alex. I'm going to be talking about making a plan, which I believe is the most important step among these 5 steps. Everyone needs to know where to be, where to go, who their family is, how many people are going to be there. Especially in the event of an emergency, there's so many things going on. You're worried about your friends, you're worried about your family, your kids, your dogs, or cats, or other pets. And so one of these emergency contact forms should be in the back of that FEMA packet. You don't have to fill it out now, they take a lot of time, but just having, certain people that you can call, you can either take it with you or leave it behind in case there's a break into your house by a fireman. They can call to make sure, tell them that you have evacuated safely. Many of the other ones that you can get on the internet also, you should bring with you. It has personal contacts like physicians, health insurance, and utility companies like that, so you can know, to shut off your power, shut off your water before you leave as well. Also on the American Red Cross, they have websites where you can literally draw a plan. It's actually hurt my back standing like this. So you can actually draw out a plan on a grid paper. Oh, we're actually going to be doing that as an activity later, so I'll touch on that later. But yeah, so this is basically the plan. You can draw out on this grid your neighborhood, your house, somewhere that your friends, family, and kids can all meet at in a general public location, somewhere that is away from the fire, typically outside of either the fire line or typically outside of the what's known as the hot zone, the area that firefighters have evacuated to keep people safe.
Once we've downloaded Everbridge, are we going to walk through the steps to do all this now, or is it just kind of do this on, I don't want to keep stopping the presentation, but you don't have to do that. Show what to do next.
Go back to the website.
You know what, go ahead and turn it, we can talk about this later.
No, we wanted to give people a forum to ask questions. So was everyone else able to go through all the steps and sign up?
I think so. Then there's a lot of questions about time zone and things like that. That's where I am right now.
Okay.
When I got registered, I had to put a username and a password.
Okay. So I think because it sent you to the app, which you don't need to do, I think that just makes it just changes the format of how you get the alert. So I think if we go back to the website and do the sign up and then just say no to the app, that might be a more direct way to get signed up.
So I'm not
Yeah, and then just scroll down.
create a username.
Yeah, just go through all of the steps.
Password, do all this stuff.
If it asks you to do other things, just hit no, and then you can download the app afterwards and figure that out. Because I actually don't use the app, so I am not sure
Oh, I see, okay.
about that. But yeah, once you go through all of those steps, it should get to a point where it tells you that you're signed up. And is that,
Okay.
and then,
So you don't walk those things. Oh, that's fine. We'll just do this here. I'll create a username.
yeah, I'm very unfamiliar with the app, but signing up through the website should get you all of the same information.
And I did want to touch more on the plan. The reason you need to have a plan is that depending on your home style, how it's built, where it's built, you have anywhere between 30 seconds and 120 seconds to evacuate your home in the event of a fire. So like a mobile home type construction can stand up to 45 seconds typically, whereas a multi-story brick home would probably take between 2 and 5 minutes. So as long as you have everyone ready to go in 120 seconds, it'll be a lot easier to survive a fire.
So just to check back in on the signing up for the alerts, does anyone have any questions with that as we go through? We can stop for a minute and let people get through that.
I'm stuck on invalid password.
Okay.
Do I use the one they have on it, or?
Make sure it's something that you'll remember, and just make sure that it meets all of the requirements. Like if it asks for a special character, you might have to make sure that it has an exclamation point or something like that. But
there's a limit of what special characters you can put. Either certain special characters you cannot put in there. It just has to have a letter and a number. That's what it said to me. Because I had the same problem.
okay, yeah. So if it specifically doesn't want, I'll come over and take a look real quick.
Pass me by, we'll do it.
Okay, I can check in with you at the end.
So what am I doing with strong crystals already on there? As I said, let's not.
It's fine.
I'm a 19th century guy trying to survive in the 21st century world, and
Your phone is trying to give you something that it thinks you want. Your phone's trying to outsmart you.
the phone is on the
Thinks
screen.
it knows.
That's why we like technology.
Same.
Choose my own password.
Yeah. So at the end, we can also pull the website up on the computer so we can go through it step by step if that would be helpful for people. But I also can't say enough about 211. If these sort of alerts are, or if you don't look at your smartphone a lot, then getting alerted through your smartphone isn't necessarily going to be the most user-friendly way. So just staying aware and getting your resources through 211 is also a really good idea. But we can pull the website up because their website really isn't as user-friendly as it should be. Okay, so I think we'll come back to that at the end when we have the PowerPoint down and we can actually pull the website up, because I think that might be, having a visual might be helpful. So
My profile was successfully created.
excellent. I'm glad to hear it.
It took a few pages though, yeah.
Yeah, it is a lengthy process, but once you're done with it, then you don't have to do anything else, so that's
Yes.
good.
Okay. So far, numbers.
So the third step that we recommend is packing a go bag. This is going to be a little bit different for everyone because we want it to have the things that you need it to have. So if you were to get that alert that you need to evacuate right away, what would you want to have with you? And it has to be stuff that you're not going to have to unpack. So like I need my passport, so I'm not going to put my passport in there, but I've made a photocopy of the portrait page of my passport, and I have a paper copy in there as well as a copy of it on a USB. I have a copy of my birth certificate in there. So having copies of your documents so that you're not going to have to unpack it every single time you need to go to the DMV or do something is important. The copies won't work for everything, but if if unfortunately your house were to burn down, you at least have something while you're waiting for replacements to come through. So, copies of documents, medication lists. If you have an extra supply of some of your medications to keep in there that aren't going to expire immediately or something like that, if that's something that is possible for you, then keeping an extra supply in there would be fine, and as long as you're keeping your bag somewhere that's not out in the garage or something like that. If they're you want to be aware of their temperature requirements, but also just having a medication list so that when you get to the Red Cross shelter, they have pharmacists there and you can say, here's the medications that I need to be replaced. So as long as it prevents you from having to be calling Kaiser and trying to figure out what medications you need, having that ready to go. The county, if it's a county shelter or a Red Cross shelter, they have to replace those. They will work with you and get those replaced. So just having a list of them is almost as good as having a replacement, as long as you wind up at a shelter. And then having some small bills, just to be able to pay for things. Anything that you're getting at a Red Cross shelter is going to be free, same with the county, but it's good to have some petty cash on hand just in case. And any really important family heirlooms or copies of photos. I've now scanned all of my photos and I have them on a flash drive that's in my go bag, just because I really don't want to lose those. So if doing something like that is possible for you, then it's a good idea. And a paper map, just in case cell service is down, and if you have your evacuation spots marked on that map, however it works for you, this is really designed to be customizable, but I think having a paper map saying okay, if the family is separated, this is where we're going, and having somebody designated to pick that go bag up on your way out, and having a plan, practicing that plan, I think that can make a lot of difference in terms of getting out quickly and meeting at your designated spot timely, so that you know that everyone's safe, you know that all the animals are out, and you're good to go. Are there any questions about the go bag or the process of it or what should be in there? No? Okay.
Can I offer a suggestion?
Yeah.
My son was a volunteer fireman down in Ripon, and the two things that he recommended, one, photographs of family, because those are the things that cannot be replaced as much as you'd like. He also had me go and buy a safe. It's a fire safe. It will take up to 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit. The point is, you need a safe with all of your fine documents in it, whatever. And then secondly, you need to keep it locked. Simply because if there's a fire and the floor collapses and it falls through and the lid flops open, everything's going to burn anyhow. But he felt, and so this is it's very heavy because it's very solid. But he recommended that, and we went out and bought one. That's where we keep almost all of our important paperwork.
That's smart. So a fire safe for in your home to keep the original documents safe, and then when you need to use them, you can just open and close it as you need, and then keeping copies ready to go that you can take with you, because you just don't want to be caught in an emergency with your go bag half unpacked because you had to use something out of it the day before. So that's a good suggestion. And then the fourth step is making a stay box. This also is really designed to be whatever you need it to be, but we recommend having enough food and water for 3 days because that's typically how long it takes for help to reach you in the event of an emergency where it's safer for you to shelter in place. So enough water and food for at least 3 days, and then sanitary items like toilet paper, trash bags, Clorox wipes, gloves to safely use any cleaning supplies. Am I forgetting anything? Oh, if you're using canned food, you want to make sure that you have a can opener that's not electric in the event that the power goes out, things like that. Just make sure that you have enough supplies for 3 days and all of the things that you need to use those things for 3 days without electricity and without any external help. Am I forgetting anything? Oh, and then some additional things, first aid kits, prescription medications, like we were talking about with the go bag, the copies of important documents, having those in 2 places is a good idea. Battery powered radio if you're able to get one of those. And these things can get expensive quite quickly, so if you start now and you just put I would say you want to immediately get water and food because you just can't live without them. And then over time, we're in a state that's really prone to various kinds of disasters, and so this isn't going away. So if you put the essentials in right now and then over the next couple years you put one thing in every few months, if the price is an issue, that's fine too. But water and food, I would say immediately, if you get that ready to go, that would be a really good idea. Batteries, lighters, things like that, those can be figured out later, but water and food I would say are the most important things. And then with COVID, having some extra masks in there, same with your go bag, having masks, having hand sanitizer, disinfecting wipes, things like that. Just, the shelters are clean, and like the shelter that I was working at had a COVID isolation ward, so you also, but you also want to feel comfortable and know that where you're going is clean. Even if they are separating people with COVID, it's a stressful environment, and so you want to bring things that will make you feel safe too. Do you want to do the next slide?
This is my favorite. And last but certainly not least, if not the most important, is help your friends and neighbors. If you are in the ability to help anyone you can during an emergency, I'm sure a friendly face would not be unwelcomed. This is kind of unique to what we do. The American Red Cross does not include helping others. They like to save that for professional firefighters and CAL FIRE and stuff like that. But we really do encourage just kind of keeping as a community, because it's not just one home that burns down, it's typically all of ours. So if you can help your friends, help your family, help your neighbors, that would be the most important.
You can definitely help by showing your neighbors and your family members or friends the flyer that we have in front of you. So, yeah, that's very helpful. That would help them.
She was saying that if you can pass around this flyer, show all your friends. There are also extra copies here if you guys want to take them, have anyone who needs them. And the FEMA Ready to Go guide as well. Those are available online as well as an electronic copy in the event that there aren't enough physical ones.
Yeah, we have tons of extra copies of those, and so come and see us if you want more of those. Pastor Dan, Listos has them in a ton of different languages, so if you have neighbors who English isn't a language that they're comfortable in, we do have access to all of those, as does everyone. They're a free resource online, but if you want them printed out, you can get in contact with me after the presentation, or Pastor Dan has my contact information and we can get those out to people. Another way to help your friends and family is to go over your evacuation plan with your neighbors, because if you're all trying to get out together, or knowing that if you have a neighbor that's in a wheelchair and needs help in the event of an evacuation, knowing that stuff, I would say that including them in your planning process is a much more important way of helping them than actually, you know, checking on them during a disaster, because if you have the sheriff coming door to door telling people to evacuate, they're gonna hear it too. But if you have that plan ahead of time and you know, okay, we're gonna meet in this spot, and you see that they're not there, then you know that something's wrong and you can let somebody know that something's going on. So I would say meet with your neighbors. If you have friends or family in the area that you know have mobility issues or have a lot of children or a lot of pets or something that makes it take longer for them to get out, include them in your planning process and share these resources with them. And I think that's a really important step to getting them ready to go as well.
Alright, so now that we're out of the 5 steps, we're going to start talking about how you can be prepared. So wildfire preparedness is probably the #1 threat to the North Central Valley of California. We do get earthquakes, but they aren't typically as destructive as, you know, a 1,000,000-acre fire. I don't know how many of you guys have landscaping that is not rock-based. If you do, try and keep usually all of your brush that is not alive 30 feet from your home. It's enough space to keep ember casting, which is the actual embers flying out of a fire and striking up in a different area that has not been burnt yet. If you keep that away from your home, you can better protect your home from being burnt. In addition to, you can also know where your utilities are, so you know where your breaker boxes are, you know where your water valves are, and all of the utility shut-off systems and valves. I know they're different for each person's home, but go ahead and shut your gas off, shut your water off, shut your breakers off before leaving. It can reduce threat of sparking another fire. And then wildfire insurance. I know that is slowly going away in California. There are, I believe, government agencies that are helping to replace wildfire insurance if you have lost it, but also keeping up your homeowners and renters insurance is another way to protect at least your personal property, if not your actual homes or condos.
Raise the microphone. It's like, just raise it.
I'm okay with this. Is that good? How magical. So then, these are terms to know. What are red flag days? Evacuation warnings and evacuation orders. A red flag day is a general warning that you are potentially in threat of either wildfire, earthquake, or some other natural disaster. When you're given an evacuation warning, the government's Office of Emergency Services, CAL FIRE, and other various agencies are determining whether your area is under a direct threat, and it's determining whether it should be under orders or not. And then the evacuation order is that alert you will get on your phone, over the airwaves, on the radio, or on television, telling you that it is time for you to leave your home. And they usually will send out, prior to this, the exact address of where you're going to be going. Yeah, that last one's really important. Stay out of the smoke. Anytime you see smoke, just drive away from it. Morbid curiosity is super cool. Being a paramedic, I really do like fire scenes, but they're super unsafe if you don't have the proper personal protective equipment. You can also, you need to be prepared to leave at any moment, especially watching the fires creep closer and closer to South Lake Tahoe. They never thought one would reach there, but you know, we were able to help, not us particularly, but CAL FIRE was able to help protect them. And they were able to evacuate with no deaths currently this year, except for one firefighter. So then, you know, following all these steps in the event of a fire is definitely a most assured way of keeping you safe.
Okay, yeah, that does work really well. So we just, you know, we're not here to convince anyone to get the vaccine or not, but we like to put this in because sheltering is made very complicated by us being in the middle of a pandemic, and the more people who get vaccinated, the easier it is to have these congregate shelters. The Red Cross, I know last year was doing non-congregate sheltering, so they were having to pay for individual hotel rooms for every single person. They were only able to put families together or people in the same household, and that was very complicated, and they didn't have enough volunteers, and the volunteers this year are still very burnt out from having to drive all over several different cities, going, bringing food and like their hygiene kits and all of these things to every hotel room within a 3 different cities for one individual fire, and having to send their caseworkers out there to get them more permanent living situations when people did lose their houses in the lightning complex fires last year. So the sooner that the COVID situation can be brought under control, the easier that fire season will be. It is also, smoke, like Alex was saying, is really, really dangerous, and so not having COVID in the middle of that, since it's a respiratory issue, would be helpful to be protected from that. Like I said, the shelters are set up to deal with COVID. They know that that's an issue, and they've had a whole year to figure that out, but it makes it a lot easier for the Red Cross and for the county if people are vaccinated and have some amount of protection. And like I was saying earlier, if you are interested in the vaccine, or you know somebody who is hesitant and is now starting to think, maybe that's something I should do, 211 is a really good resource for that. They can help walk people through it, because I know the state websites can be quite complicated. I used to work for the county in planning the COVID vaccination sites, and when they had us move to My Turn, it is quite complicated, but use those resources like 211, because they're there to help you, and they put all that money into them so that people can use them. So take advantage of that, because they are very helpful. So as I said, we're not here to convince anyone to get vaccinated, but we just want people to know that there are resources out there if people are interested in receiving the vaccine, and that it does make sheltering logistically easier, but also just be prepared. Have masks, have hand sanitizer ready to go in your stay kit and in your go bag, and just plan for the world the way it is right now. Shelters are going to do their best to keep you safe, but if you have like a pack of N95s ready to go, if you feel more comfortable with a face shield, or if you're immunocompromised or something like that, having that extra protection just will make it a better experience for you if you don't have to be worried the whole time too. Yeah. Questions?
I was signing up for the Cal alerts, and to go back to
Yeah.
the beginning, there's a whole bunch of different things to my subscriptions.
Okay.
I wasn't sure I signed up for a bunch of stuff. I don't know if that's a good deal or not. I'm like, emergency alerts, Yolo County, City of Davis, community messages, press releases, urgent, like a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know if that's.
We'll pull the website up as soon as, I think we have like 2 more slides just of like references and random stuff like that. So we'll get through that, and then once we're through the slideshow, we'll pull that up so that we can actually walk through it, because I think that going individually person to person is more complicated than having it. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Any other questions? You're the change. I don't even know what that means, but
You're the change if you help your friends and family and your neighbors.
yeah, it's inspirational. So this is our supervisor, Travis, but you can also, like I said, if you know anyone who's interested in this information, we also do 5-minute presentations. We can go door to door, we can do whatever. So if you know anyone or are aware of a neighborhood or an organization that you think could benefit from this information, I know we already did Rancho Yolo, the senior housing community. But if you know anyone, you can get in contact with our supervisor, but probably it would make it be more direct, and you'd get a faster response to just contact me through Pastor Dan, or I can give you my contact information afterwards, because we are just,
You don't mind me sharing it with the whole group? I will.
Yeah, no, go for it. Yeah, I think a lot of people here even know my address, like where I live, so at this point, yeah.
Directly, so, I mean, if it's the same one as.
Yeah, my phone number, my work email, I think you have my personal email too. However people get in contact with me is.
People contacting you with questions?
Absolutely, yeah. You can contact me with questions, because we just want to get this information out there and get people thinking about this, because the wildfires aren't going away, and through.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, through my work with the Red Cross, I've also realized how many like individual house fires we have in this area. Sacramento has a lot of house fires, and so even if it's not a major wildfire, having this go bag, so if you're like, oh, my kitchen, you know, I have a grease fire in my kitchen, I can grab my go bag and I can leave the house, and I have a plan. I know who's gonna grab the dog so that the dog doesn't get left behind. I know who in my family is gonna grab the go bag so that doesn't get left behind. And you know, if there's like a baby in the house, I know who's gonna grab the baby and the diaper bag and the go bag. Then you can get out a lot faster, and that's really important. Even if you think, oh well, my town is never gonna get hit by a wildfire. You know, somebody leaves the stove on next door, and all of a sudden you have a house fire. So, and it can happen to anyone. Mm-hmm.
That was the question I was going to ask, because I have a neighbor who's a fire ecologist, and she said, yeah, Davis is a community that's probably not prone to fires because it's relatively isolated. So there'd have to be some really freaky conditions for a fire to jump and then start burning in the city of Davis. Like, it could happen, but she said, like, just me as a fire ecologist, I'm not that worried. That was just her point to us. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, really? Okay, because like, we were freaked out last year. Or so that would be one of the questions. Like, it's good to do. I think we need to do this absolutely for the reasons we said. But maybe it's not your job to tell us how likely is this to happen. But I just wonder about that. Like, if there could be other problems, earthquake is a possibility for us.
I mean, the probability is never zero.
Of course.
You know, so even if it was a 5% probability, I mean, having a bag with all your stuff in it to go is definitely not off.
Yeah, which we do.
Oh, it's never bad.
Yeah.
Mostly because of COVID.
Oh, definitely.
For sure. Yeah, and I think that I'm through the Red Cross. I'm on a disaster action team. They call it DAT. So we're called second responders. So we go right after the firefighters have left and have put the fire out, and are basically there to like help people put the pieces back together. And I think that people, with all of the focus that we have in California on wildfires, I think we fail to realize how devastating house fires can be, and that everyone is at risk of those. So there was like a fire that burned down, I think, 30 residences at a mobile home park in Sacramento just a few weeks ago, and we're still responding to calls because their residences were burned all the way to the ground. People didn't have enough time to get their pets out, which is super traumatizing. So we're having to go back with mental health services.
We went up to Paradise where my grandfather built a house in Paradise. We made a pilgrimage to see, did the house survive? We just had to see for ourselves, and it did.
Good.
The house next door was burned to the ground. It was like every other house was like survive, didn't survive, survive, didn't survive. But we went to the mobile home park where my grandmother lived after she left that house. Just black.
Yeah.
Nothing there. So, and it was like, I mean, it was like the apocalypse. It was really good to see. It's like,
Yeah, mobile homes go up very, very fast. So if you live in something like that, having your go bag, knowing exactly where it is, having it close to the door is really, really important because they do go up really, and having a plan to get your pets out. You know, they recommend having like a pet carrier container because it's easier to control them once you're at the shelter. But if you're in a mobile home, just getting them out at all, because that one in Sacramento, it happened so fast. And I think that everyone there thought, oh, the Caldor is up in the hills, we're safe from that, that's not something we have to worry about. But somebody left something on the stove, and then all of a sudden the whole housing complex burned down. So it can affect you. And wildfires, it's unlikely, but it can, but especially house fires in this area, we're all at risk of those. Any other questions? Yeah.
AmeriCorps is federal, and this emergency response corps is state. What's the connection?
So we are an AmeriCorps program, but we do receive federal funding, but we also have a connection to California Office of Emergency Services, so we do receive some state funding. And so that means that we can only be deployed within the state because we were created to specifically respond to COVID and the wildfire situation here. So we're never gonna get sent over to like hurricanes in New Orleans or something like that, but we are specifically designed to respond to food insecurity and COVID response and wildfires here in this state.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I think, do we have one more slide or are we at the end? I know there was a lot of like ending slides. So can we pull up that website?